A rich man lives surrounded by luxury, but carries an emptiness that nothing can fill. Everything changes when a child says something simple that breaks his controlled routine. That phrase awakens emotions he had avoided for years without realizing it, and this encounter may lead him to discover what truly gives meaning to life. If this beautiful story of overcoming and love interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you are watching us from. Continuing. The morning in São Paulo began like all others for Bernardo Tavares. The alarm sounded punctually at 5:45, the same time as always, and he opened his eyes already completely awake. There was no transition between sleep and wakefulness, just an internal click that activated his routine with mechanical precision. He got out of the king-size bed, crossed the minimalist bedroom of the apartment on Faria Lima, and went straight to the marble bathroom. The hot water from the shower fell at the exact temperature, regulated automatically. Everything there was perfect, calibrated, predictable. At 42 years old, Bernardo had achieved everything he had planned. His financial consulting firm was a reference in the market, with clients across the country. His wealth exceeded figures that most people could not even imagine. He had imported cars, Swiss watches, and custom-made Italian suits. He could dine at the best restaurants, travel anywhere in the world, and buy practically anything he desired. And yet, as he adjusted his tie in front of the mirror, Bernardo stared at his own reflection with the same feeling of emptiness that had accompanied him for years. It wasn't exactly sadness. It was something more subtle, deeper, an absence he couldn't name but that he felt every day upon waking up alone in that huge apartment. Bernardo had learned early on that emotions were dangerous, that bonds could become traps, that trusting someone meant opening space for disappointment. So he built walls around himself, walls so high and solid that no one could cross. And he liked it that way. Or at least that was what he told himself. Breakfast was served by the employee who came 3 times a week to take care of the apartment. She placed the tray on the table, murmured an almost inaudible good morning, and disappeared. Bernardo ate alone, looking at his cell phone, answering emails, checking market quotes. Even in moments of pause, his brain continued working, processing numbers, strategies, opportunities. There was no room for daydreams, for feelings, for anything that could not be quantified or controlled. The morning meeting proceeded without surprises. Numbers presented, graphs analyzed, decisions made. Bernardo commanded the room with natural authority, his voice firm and his observations precise. The employees respected him, but they also feared him. No one there knew Bernardo beyond the professional surface. No one knew what he did on weekends, if he had a family, if he had friends. And Bernardo preferred it that way. The less people knew, the less power they would have over him. When he finally left the office, it was already past 7 in the evening. São Paulo's traffic was chaotic as always, but Bernardo didn't mind. He turned on the car stereo, soft classical music, and followed his usual path. He used to dine alone at some sophisticated restaurant or order food at home. He rarely cooked. He rarely did anything that required effort beyond work. But that night, for some reason he couldn't explain, Bernardo decided to stop at a different place. He saw a small lit-up square with food stalls and a few people walking around. It wasn't the kind of place he frequented, but something made him park the car and get out. Perhaps it was just curiosity, or perhaps it was the weariness of always following the same script. The square was simple, but it had life. Children ran between the benches, couples talked, vendors offered pastéis and sugarcane juice. Bernardo walked slowly, observing everything with a mixture of estrangement and fascination. That was real, authentic, different from the world of appearances in which he lived. The people there were not worried about impressing anyone. They just existed, laughed, lived. That was when he felt a tug on his suit jacket sleeve. Bernardo looked down and encountered a girl of about 7 years old, dark hair tied in a slightly crooked ponytail, large and curious eyes staring at him without any shyness. She wore a simple dress, already somewhat faded, but she was clean and well cared for. She held a small box with colorful candies. "Do you want to buy a candy, mister?" Her voice was sweet, but there was something determined in it as well. Bernardo automatically reached into his pocket, willing to give a few bills and move on, but the girl kept talking. "It's 1 real each. My mother makes them at home. They are delicious, truly." She does everything so we have something to eat." Bernardo took a 5 real bill and held it out to her. "You can keep the change." The girl took the money but didn't seem impressed. She carefully separated 5 candies and placed them in his hand. "Change is change, mister. My mother says we don't accept charity. We sell because our work is worth something." For the first time in a long time, Bernardo was speechless. There was a dignity in that child that completely disarmed him. She wasn't there asking for pity. She was working, proud of what she did. And there was more strength in that small gaze than in many adults he knew. "What is your name?" Bernardo found himself asking, something he rarely did. "Isabella, but everyone calls me Bela. And you?" "Bernardo, pleased to meet you, Bella." The girl smiled, and it was a genuine smile, without ulterior motives. Then, with the same naturalness with which she had started the conversation, she said something that would echo in Bernardo's mind for days. "You look lonely, mister. My mother is too. She works a lot and is always tired, but she is nice. Maybe you two could talk one day. Lonely people should talk to lonely people, right?" Bernardo blinked, trying to process that. It wasn't a proposal, it wasn't manipulation. It was just the innocent observation of a child who saw the world in a much simpler and more direct way than adults. And precisely because of that, it hit something inside him that had been dormant for years. "You are very smart, Bella. My mother says I talk too much, but I think talking is good. When we stay too quiet, sadness grows." She shrugged, as if she had just revealed a deep secret of the universe. "I have to go. I still have candies to sell. Bye, Mr. Bernardo." And just as she had appeared, she ran off, leaving Bernardo standing there in the middle of the square, with 5 candies in his hand and a whirlwind of thoughts in his head. He looked around, trying to process what had just happened. That child, who had so little, had managed to see something in him that he himself pretended not to see. Loneliness. The word echoed in his mind like a bell. Bernardo went back to the car but couldn't drive immediately. He sat there looking at the colorful candies in his hand. When was the last time someone had truly touched him, not physically, but emotionally? When was the last time someone saw him beyond the facade of the successful businessman, beyond the expensive suit and the Swiss watch? He couldn't remember. That night, for the first time in years, Bernardo couldn't sleep properly. He tossed and turned in bed, thinking about the girl, her words, the way she looked at him without fear and without interest. She didn't want anything from him other than to sell her candies and move on. But even so, she left a mark. In the following days, Bernardo tried to maintain his usual routine. Meetings, decisions, numbers. But something had changed. He found himself thinking about the square, the girl, the mother she had mentioned. Who was that woman? What was it like to raise a daughter alone, selling handmade candies to survive? What kind of strength was necessary to maintain dignity amidst so many difficulties? A week later, he returned to the square. He didn't plan it, he just found himself driving there after work. He was looking for something, though he didn't know exactly what. He walked among the stalls, the benches, the people. He didn't see Bella, but he didn't allow himself to feel disappointment. Or at least he tried not to. It was the second time he returned, nearly 2 weeks after the first encounter, that he saw her again. Bella was sitting on a bench, swinging her legs, the candy box by her side. When she saw Bernardo, her eyes brightened in recognition. "Mr. Bernardo, you came back." She jumped off the bench and ran to him. "I knew you would come back. My mother said you wouldn't, but I knew." "Why did you think I would come back?" Bernardo asked, genuinely curious. "Because you had the face of someone who needed to come back, like when we forget something important and go back to get it. Except you didn't forget anything here. I think you forgot something inside yourself." Bernardo felt something tighten in his chest. How could a 7-year-old child be so perceptive? Or perhaps the right question was, how had he become so disconnected from himself that even a child could see through him? "Is your mother nearby?" Bernardo asked, surprising himself. "She is. She works over there." Bella pointed to a small natural juice stall in the corner of the square. "She makes the best juices in São Paulo. Want to try some?" Before he could answer, Bella had already taken his hand and was pulling him toward the stall. And Bernardo, the man who controlled millions, who commanded meetings with powerful executives, who never let anyone dictate his steps, simply let himself be led by that small and determined little hand. As he walked, a strange sensation took hold of him. Nervousness, anxiety, expectation, emotions he hadn't felt for so long that he had almost forgotten what they were like, because somehow, without fully understanding why, he knew that this casual encounter in a simple square in São Paulo was about to change his life forever. And for the first time in decades, Bernardo did not try to control what would come next. He just took a deep breath and allowed himself to feel. The juice stall was simple, made of a metal structure covered with colored canvas, but it had something welcoming. Fresh fruits were organized in wooden crates, and a small blender worked non-stop. Behind the counter, a woman with her back turned was preparing a juice, her brown hair tied in a messy bun, a simple white t-shirt and jeans. When she turned around, Bernardo felt his breath catch for a second. Mariana Costa was not the kind of woman who appeared in the fashion magazines he occasionally flipped through. She had no elaborate makeup, expensive jewelry, or designer clothes. But she had something that all those women in his social circle lacked. Truth. Her brown eyes were deep, carrying stories she didn't tell easily. She had delicate features, but there was strength there, a determination manifested in the way she held the glass, in her upright posture, in the direct way she faced Bernardo. "Mom, look who's back," Bella practically shouted, jumping with excitement. "It's the Mr. Bernardo I told you about, the candy one." Mariana wiped her hands on a cloth and looked at her daughter with a mixture of tenderness and concern. "Bella, how many times have I told you not to go around starting conversations with strangers?" "But he's not a stranger, Mom. He bought candies and came back. Strange people don't come back." The child's logic pulled a small smile from Mariana, but she quickly regained her serious expression and turned to Bernardo. "I'm sorry if my daughter bothered you. She is very communicative." "She didn't bother me." Bernardo felt uncomfortable under that piercing gaze. It was as if Mariana were reading every detail of him, from the Italian suit to the Swiss watch, and forming conclusions he wasn't sure he wanted to know. "She's right. I came back." "I see." Mariana crossed her arms, maintaining a clear distance. "Do you want a juice?" "Please." "What flavor?" "You choose." It was an automatic response, something Bernardo always did. Delegating small decisions, maintaining control of the large ones. But Mariana arched an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. "I don't know what you like. Every person has a different taste." Bernardo realized that wasn't just about juice. It was a test, a way for Mariana to establish that there, in her space, he had no special privileges. "Orange, then, with acerola if you have it." "I have it." Mariana turned and began preparing the juice with efficient and precise movements. Bella took advantage of her mother's distraction to pull Bernardo by the arm. "She's pretty, right?" the girl whispered too loudly. "And she's very strong. Once she carried 3 boxes of fruit by herself because the delivery guy didn't want to help. And she makes the best sweets in the world. And she sings when she's happy. And... Bella." Mariana's voice cut through the air, firm but affectionate. "Go play with Julia. She's waiting for you near the slide." The girl pouted but obeyed, not without first giving a complicit wink to Bernardo. When they were alone, the silence grew dense. Mariana placed the juice on the counter and waited for payment. 5 reais. Bernardo took out his wallet and, without thinking, held out a 50 real bill. "You can keep the change." Mariana's eyes narrowed. For the second time in a few weeks, Bernardo made the same mistake with the same family. "I don't need charity. You either want your change, or I don't accept your money." He felt his face heat up. "I'm sorry, it wasn't my intention to offend." Mariana sighed, and for a moment Bernardo saw weariness on that face, a deep weariness that went beyond the physical. "Look, I know people like you are used to solving everything with money. But it doesn't work that way here. I work. I earn my own. I take care of my daughter. I don't need charity." "I understand." Bernardo took a 10 real bill and waited for the change. "And for the record, I didn't think you needed it. It was just a gesture." "The gesture I didn't ask for." Mariana returned 5 reais and went back to organizing the fruits, clearly ending the conversation. But Bernardo didn't move. He stayed there, drinking the juice slowly, watching her work. There was a grace in those movements, an innate efficiency of someone who did that every day and put love into every gesture. "Why did you come back?" The question came suddenly, without Mariana looking at him. Bernardo could have sworn she didn't care, but something in the tension of her shoulders said otherwise. I don't know. It was honest, perhaps for the first time in a long time. Your daughter said something that stayed in my head. Bella talks too much. She speaks truths, there's a difference. Mariana finally stopped and looked at him, really looked. And Bernardo felt as if he were being taken apart piece by piece. That woman saw through the masks he had worn for decades. She saw the emptiness, the loneliness, the man hiding behind success. Look, Bernardo, can I call you that? She didn't wait for an answer. I don't know what you're looking for here, if it's adventure, if it's some kind of exotic experience to see how the other half lives, if it's rich man's boredom. But whatever it is, I have a daughter to protect. So if you intend to show up here every now and then disappear, it's better not to even start. Bella gets attached easily. She's already had too many disappointments in her life. The harshness of those words hurt more than Bernardo expected, but it also woke him up. Mariana wasn't playing games. She wasn't trying to manipulate or seduce. She was being brutally honest, protecting what she held most precious. And there was something absurdly attractive about that sincerity. I didn't come here to hurt anyone. Bernardo chose his words carefully. I don't quite know what I came to do. I only know that after I met your daughter, something changed. She made me think about things I've been avoiding for years. Like what? Like the fact that I have everything and nothing at the same time. Mariana gave a short, humorless laugh. Welcome to the club. Except in my case, I have nothing and yet I have everything that matters. She looked in the direction where Bella was playing, and her face softened completely. That girl is my whole life. I work from Sunday to Sunday, I wake up early, I sleep late, I juggle the bills. But when she hugs me and says she loves me, nothing else matters. Bernardo felt a pang of envy. When was the last time someone loved him like that? When was the last time he allowed someone to love him? How do you do it? He asked, genuinely curious. Maintain this strength, this dignity, even when everything is difficult? Because I don't have a choice. Mariana leaned against the counter, finally lowering her guard a little. Bella's father left us when she was 2. He just walked out of the house one day and never came back. He doesn't even pay child support. In the beginning, it was desperate. I had a bad job. I earned poorly. I lived as a favor at my aunt's house. I thought about giving up several times. But then I looked at her, so small, so innocent, and I knew I had to be strong. Not for me, but for her. Did you never think of asking for help? Ask who? Mariana shrugged. My family is humble. Everyone struggles to survive. Friends, each with their own problems. I learned early on that the only person I can truly count on is myself. That's why I work. That's why I fight. Because I know I can. Bernardo fell silent, processing that. In his world, help was always available. Lawyers, accountants, consultants. There was an entire network of professionals paid to solve problems. But here was a woman who had none of that, and yet managed not only to survive, but to keep her head held high. You are incredible. The words came out before he could filter them. Mariana blinked, surprised. Then she laughed, and it was a real laugh this time. You barely know me. I know. But I've seen enough to know that you have something that many people I know don't have. Real strength. Not that fake strength of someone who has never faced real difficulties. The strength of someone who was tested and didn't break. She turned red, looking away. Be careful with easy compliments. I don't usually believe them. It wasn't easy, it was true. The silence that followed was not uncomfortable. It was charged, but in a different way. As if something had moved between them, a first stone of a bridge that perhaps could be built. Bela came running back, interrupting the moment. Mom, Julia's leaving. Can I go to the park gate with her? You can, but don't take long. We're leaving soon, too. The girl dashed off and Mariana sighed. That child has infinite energy. I don't know where she gets it from. From you, probably. Bernardo smiled. She has your fire. God forbid, I'm enough. We don't need another crazy person in this family. A family of 2, it must be intense. It is, but it's all I need. Mariana began putting things away, preparing to close the stall. Look, it's late. I need to take Bella home. She has school early tomorrow. Can I give you a ride? Bernardo offered before he could think. Mariana looked at him as if he had spoken in another language. We live in Heliopolis. I doubt you know where that is, let alone want to go in there with that fancy car. I'll take you wherever you want. Why? Mariana crossed her arms again, defensive. What's your deal, Bernardo? Why is a guy like you here offering a ride, wanting to get involved with us? What do you want? It was the right question. The question Bernardo had been avoiding asking himself. What did he want? He didn't know. He only knew that for the first time in a long time, he felt alive. That talking to Mariana, even if she was harsh with him, even if she provoked him, was better than all the empty conversations he had in his daily life. I want to get to know you better. It was the closest to the truth he could get. No ulterior motives without expecting anything in return. I just want to know more about you and Bela. You two are different, in a good way. Mariana studied his face for a long moment. Then she shook her head, more to herself than to him. I must be crazy, all right, you can take us, but only to the entrance of the community. And don't get used to it. This isn't going to become a routine. Understood. As Mariana finished closing the stall and called Bela, Bernardo felt something strange in his chest. Anxiety, expectation, nervousness. Emotions he had kept locked away for so long that he had almost forgotten they existed. And for the first time, instead of stifling those feelings, he let them flow, because at that moment, standing in a simple square in São Paulo, waiting for a woman he barely knew and her radiant daughter, Bernardo Tavares realized something fundamental. He wasn't just looking to get to know Mariana and Bela. He was looking to know himself as well, looking for that part of him that got lost somewhere between the first million and the final loneliness. And maybe, just maybe, those two women could help him find the way back. The ride to Heliopolis was wrapped in a silence punctuated only by Bela's animated chatter in the back seat. She told stories about school, her friends, about everything and nothing, completely oblivious to the subtle tension between the two adults. Mariana looked out the window, arms crossed, clearly uncomfortable inside that car that probably cost more than she would earn in several years of work. Bernardo drove carefully, conscious of every movement, every word that could break that fragile balance. When they reached the entrance of the community, Mariana already had her hand on the door handle before the car even came to a complete stop. It was fast, thanks for the ride. You don't need to do this again. But Bela had other plans. Mom, invite Bernardo for a coffee at our house. It would be polite. Bela, he's tired. He has to go back to his house. I'm not tired. Bernardo surprised himself and Mariana. If you don't mind, I would like to accept the invitation. Mariana turned to him, her eyes full of suspicion. Are you sure you want to go in here? It's not exactly the kind of place people like you frequent. People like me. Bernardo repeated the words, feeling the weight of them. You barely know me and you've already put me in a box. And am I wrong? Mariana challenged. What neighborhood do you live in? Jardines? Itaim? What do you work with? Finance companies? Financial consultant. I live on Faria Lima. And you're right, I've never been to a place like this, but that doesn't mean I don't want to come, or that I shouldn't. Mariana studied his face for a long moment. Then she sighed, surrendering more to her daughter's insistence than to his. All right, but don't complain later. The walk to the house was an experience Bernardo would never forget. The narrow alleys, the houses built right against each other, the sound of music coming from several directions at once, children playing in the streets, neighbors talking in doorways. It was a world completely different from his own, full of life, noise, and humanity. And yes, it also had problems, precariousness, visible difficulties. But it had something the luxury condominium where he lived did not have. Community. People who knew each other, who greeted each other, who existed for one another. Donna Mariana, good evening. An elderly man waved from a window. Do you need me to fix that leak tomorrow? I do, Sir Joaquin. Thank you very much. Tia Marie. A teenager ran past. Tomorrow I'll bring back the book you lent me. Mariana responded to everyone naturally, with genuine affection. And Bernardo realized she wasn't just a resident there. She was part of that web of relationships, of that network of mutual support. She had value there, not for what she possessed, but for who she was. The house was small, 2 rooms and a bathroom, but it was impeccable. Every corner clean, organized with care. There were flowers in a cut plastic bottle serving as a vase, Bella's drawings stuck to the fridge with magnets, a shelf with well-used books. It was humble, but it was a home, a real home, full of love and care. Sit there. Mariana pointed to a small table with 4 chairs. I'll make coffee. Bernardo sat observing everything attentively. Bela had already disappeared into the other room, probably changing clothes. He was left alone there, in that space so distant from his world, but which somehow made him feel more at home than his 300-square-meter apartment ever did. Are you judging me? Mariana asked from behind him, stirring the old coffee maker. No, I'm admiring. She turned, surprised. Admiring what? How you transformed so little into so much. Bernardo gestured around. This place has more life than anywhere I've ever lived. Mariana gave a small, almost shy smile. It's what we have. I do the best I can. And it's a lot, believe me. The coffee was served in simple cups, accompanied by homemade biscuits. Mariana sat across from him, still cautious, but a little less tense. Bela appeared in pajamas, hugged both of them, and announced she was going to sleep because she was tired. An obvious lie, but it pulled a smile from Bernardo. Even a 7-year-old was plotting in his favor. When they were alone, the silence returned, but it was different now. Less hostile, more reflective. Why did you really come here? Mariana asked, her voice softer. And don't give me that rehearsed answer. I want to know for real. Bernardo picked up the cup, more to have something to do with his hands than out of a desire to drink. I spent my whole life building things. Companies, wealth, reputation. I did everything right, at least on paper. I studied at the best schools, graduated with honors, built a successful career. I have more money than I'll ever be able to spend. I can buy anything I want, but I don't have anyone to share any of it with. I don't have this. He pointed around. This feeling of belonging somewhere, of mattering to someone for who I am, not for what I have. Mariana listened to him in silence, her eyes fixed on him. And your family, friends? My parents died a few years ago. I didn't have siblings. Friends? Bernardo laughed without humor. I have work colleagues, business contacts, people who greet me at events. But real friends, people who know me for real, I don't have them. I never let anyone get close enough. Why? Because I learned early on that trusting people is dangerous. My father built an empire and was betrayed by his partner. He lost half of everything. My mother never recovered emotionally. I saw what happens when you open your heart and get hurt. So I decided that would never happen to me. I closed all the doors, built all the walls, and it worked. I was never betrayed, never hurt. But I was also never loved. I never loved. Mariana took a deep breath, processing that. So you live in a prison you built yourself? Exactly. And you think we can save you from that? Mariana asked, but there was no cynicism in her voice, only genuine curiosity. Bela and I? You barely know us. I'm not asking to be saved. Bernardo looked into her eyes, letting vulnerability appear for the first time in a long time. I'm asking for the chance to learn, to understand what it's like to truly live, to truly feel. You two have something I lost, if I ever had it, and I want to know what it's like to have that. Mariana remained quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was heavy with emotion. Do you think we are happy? That living a struggle every day, working until exhausted, worrying if there will be money to pay the bills, is some kind of ideal life? No, I know you have difficulties I don't have, but you also have connections I don't have. You belong somewhere. People here know you, respect you. Your daughter loves you unconditionally. You have purpose, you have real reasons to wake up every day. I wake up out of habit. I work because I don't know how to do anything else. I go back to an empty apartment and sleep alone, and I repeat it all the next day. Where is the life in that? Mariana's eyes glistened with tears she didn't let fall. You are much more lonely than I imagined. I am, and I didn't even realize it until I met you. Mariana stood up, went to the sink and stood with her back turned for a moment. When she returned, she had decided something. Look, Bernardo, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't trust men easily. Bela's father hurt me in a way I'll never forget. And it wasn't just for abandoning me. It was for making promises he didn't keep. For making me believe in a future that never existed. I swore I would never let anyone into my life and my daughter's life again without being absolutely sure. I understand. But, she raised a finger, there's something about you that seems genuine. It might be my naivety, it might be tiredness. I don't know. But I see someone who is truly lost, looking for something, and I know what it's like to be lost. So I'm going to give you a chance to get to know us, to spend time, to be a part of it, but with rules. What rules? First, you don't try to solve our problems with money. If we need something, I'll ask. If I don't ask, you don't offer. Second, you respect our space and our time. We have a routine, we have commitments. You fit into that, not the other way around. Third, and most importantly, you don't hurt my daughter. She already likes you. If you intend to disappear a month from now because you got tired of the game, it's better to leave now. I won't hurt you. Bernardo spoke with conviction. I promise. Don't make promises you don't know if you can keep. Mariana sat down again, her eyes firm on his. Just be honest. With me, with Bella, and mostly with yourself. I can do that. Then we have a deal. They sat there looking at each other, and something changed in that moment. A bridge was being built between two completely different worlds. It wouldn't be easy, they both knew. There would be stumbles, misunderstandings, difficult moments. But there would also be discoveries, growth, perhaps even something deeper. It's late. Mariana looked at the clock on the wall. You should go. I wake up early tomorrow. Can I come back? Bernardo asked, already standing up. You can, but let me know beforehand. And don't show up with expensive gifts or I'll send you away. Understood. At the door, Mariana hesitated, then placed her hand on his arm. Thank you for being sincere today. It's been a long time since someone was so honest with me. Thank you for giving me this chance. Bernardo walked down the alleys back to his car, but this time paying more attention to everything. To the people, the sounds, the pulsing life of that place. And for the first time in many years, he felt part of something larger than himself. He still didn't quite know what it was, nor where it would lead, but he knew he wanted to find out. When he got into the car and drove back to his empty apartment, Bernardo realized that something fundamental had changed inside him. The walls were beginning to crack, and instead of panicking, instead of trying to repair them, he simply let them crack a little more. Because for the first time in his life, he was willing to take the risk of connecting, of feeling, of living. And all of it because of a spontaneous child who sold him candies in a square, and a strong woman who refused to be impressed by anything that wasn't the truth. Mariana and Bella didn't know it, but they had just completely changed the trajectory of Bernardo Tavares's life. And he wasn't even sure if he would ever be able to thank them enough for it. The following weeks brought a routine Bernardo never imagined having. He began frequenting the square regularly, always stopping at Mariana's juice stall, always talking to Bella. At first, Mariana kept her distance, watching every move he made with caution. But gradually, very gradually, she began to relax. Not completely, never completely, but enough for genuine conversations to happen. Bernardo discovered things about Mariana that fascinated him. She read compulsively, borrowed books from the community library, and devoured one after another. She liked sertaneja music, the old kind, the traditional one, and hummed while she worked. She had a natural talent for cooking and transformed simple ingredients into delicious meals. And she had an inner strength that impressed him every day. Even exhausted, even worried about bills, she never lost her dignity, never allowed herself to be less than she was. Mariana, in turn, began to see beyond the suit and the expensive watch. Bernardo was intelligent, extremely intelligent, but he also had an emotional naivety that bordered on childlike. He didn't know how to deal with affection, was uncomfortable with hugs, didn't understand emotional subtleties, but he was willing to learn. And that, more than anything else, touched Mariana. It was Bella who ended up bringing the two together definitively. The girl started asking Bernardo to help her with her homework, especially math. Mariana tried to protest, saying she herself could help, but Bella insisted. And Bernardo discovered that he loved teaching. He had infinite patience with the child, explained things in different ways until she understood, and celebrated every correct answer as if it were a major achievement. Everything was going too well, and Mariana knew that things that were too good never lasted. The first crack appeared on a Saturday morning. Bernardo arrived at their house without warning, something Mariana had explicitly asked him not to do. He brought bags full of groceries, new clothes for Bella, school supplies, toys. Mariana opened the door, saw the bags, and felt anger rise. "What is this?" "I saw some things and thought of Bella." Bernardo smiled, completely oblivious to the problem. "I thought she would like it. I went over my head." Mariana's voice was low, controlled, but dangerous. "I asked you for one thing, just one thing, not to try to solve our problems with money." "But they aren't problems, they are gifts. They are charity in disguise." Mariana crossed her arms. "And I don't accept it. Take it all away." "Mariana, be reasonable." Bernardo began to lose his patience, too. "I can give this to her. Why are you turning something good into something bad?" "Because you don't understand." Mariana stepped inside, pulled him in, and closed the door so as not to make a scene in front of the neighbors. "You don't understand what it means to maintain dignity when you have so little. Everything I give to my daughter, I give because I worked for it, because I earned it. When you arrive here with full bags, you are saying that I am not enough, that I can't take care of her. It's not that." "Yes, it is. It might not be your intention, but it's what you're doing." Mariana sat down, putting her hands to her face. "Bernardo, I gave you a chance. I opened my home, introduced my daughter, shared my life. But you need to respect our limits. If you can't do that, then it's not going to work." Bernardo stood there, holding the bags, feeling completely lost. In his world, gifts were the way to show affection, to show that he cared. But there, in that different universe, gifts were an invasion, a lack of respect. "I'm sorry," he said finally, his voice low. "You're right, I didn't think. I just wanted to do something good for Bella." "And you do." Mariana looked at him, her eyes weary. "You do it when you spend time with her, when you help with her homework, when you listen to her endless stories. That is worth much more than any clothes or toys. But you need to understand that time and attention are the best gifts you can give. The rest doesn't matter. I'll return everything." "No," Mariana sighed. "This time leave it, but don't do it again, and the next time you want to give something to us, you ask first. Agreed?" "Agreed." The incident left a tension in the air that took days to dissipate. Bernardo became more cautious, more attentive to Mariana's boundaries, and she, in turn, realized he was truly trying, that despite all the stumbles, he truly cared. It was on a Thursday night, after a particularly difficult day, that Mariana finally lowered her guard completely. Bernardo arrived at the square and found her sitting on a bench, her head in her hands. The stall was closed. Bela was playing nearby with other children. "Mariana?" He sat beside her. "What happened?" She raised her face, and Bernardo saw that she had been crying. "Nothing, just a bad day." "Tell me about it." Mariana hesitated, then the words began to pour out. "The owner of the stall increased the rent, almost double. I can't pay it. I'll have to look for another place, or maybe another way to work. But I don't know how to do anything else. And without the stall, how am I going to earn money?" Bernardo felt the immediate impulse to solve it, to offer money, to pay the rent, to make everything okay. But he remembered the conversation, the rules, the respect. So instead he just asked, "What do you need from me right now?" Mariana looked at him, surprised. "I just need to vent. I need someone to listen without judging, without trying to fix it. Just listen." "Then I'll listen." And he listened. He listened to her talk about the exhaustion, about the fear of not being able to give Bela a better life, about the frustration of working so hard and still living on the edge. He listened without interrupting, without offering solutions, just present, there, with her. When Mariana finished, she wiped her eyes and gave a weak smile. "Sorry for dumping all this on you." "Don't apologize." Bernardo took her hand, a simple gesture but loaded with meaning. "You asked me to be present, that's what I'm doing. If you need more than that, you let me know." Mariana looked at his hand holding hers and didn't pull away. For the first time, she allowed that touch, that proximity. "You're learning." "I'm trying." That night, after taking Mariana and Bela home, Bernardo stayed awake, thinking. He wanted to help. Every fiber of his being screamed for him to solve that problem. But he also knew that if he did it the wrong way, he would lose Mariana forever. So he needed to be smart. He needed to find a way to help without taking away her autonomy. That was when he had an idea. The next day, he called an acquaintance who worked with social entrepreneurship. He explained the situation without revealing names and asked for guidance. The friend suggested a microcredit program with very low interest rates and business training. It was perfect. It wasn't charity, it was a tool. Mariana could borrow the money, use it to expand the business or secure a better spot, and pay it back as she could. Bernardo took the information to Mariana a few days later, being careful in how he presented it. "Look, I was talking to a friend about entrepreneurship, and he told me about a program. I thought it might interest you." Mariana took the flyer he held out and read it carefully. Microcredit for small entrepreneurs. She looked at him, suspicious. "Did you set this up?" "No." Bernardo raised his hands in surrender. "I swear, I just asked about available options and he pointed this out. The decision is completely yours. If you want to sign up, I can help you with the paperwork. If you don't, no problem." Mariana studied the paper again, and Bernardo saw hope ignite in her eyes. "This could work. I could take a loan, rent a better spot, maybe hire someone to help me, and I would pay it back. It wouldn't be a favor, it would be business." "Exactly." She looked at him and there was something new in that look. Gratitude, but also something deeper. "You did this for me." "I did, but the right way this time." Mariana approached and, to Bernardo's surprise, hugged him. It was quick, but it was real. "Thank you for respecting my limits, for trying to understand." Bernardo was paralyzed by the hug, not quite knowing what to do with his hands, but feeling something warm spread through his chest. "You're welcome. I'm here for whatever you need." In the following weeks, Mariana signed up for the program, went through the process and got the loan. With the money, she rented a better spot, still in the same region, but more structured. Bernardo helped with the bureaucratic part, but it was Mariana who did everything else. She chose the location, negotiated the rent, and planned what the new stall would be like. And Bernardo saw with genuine pride Mariana flourishing. She worked hard, but now with hope, with plans for the future. And Bela also felt the difference. Her mother was less stressed, more smiling. It was on a Sunday night, after helping Mariana organize the new stall, that Bernardo realized something fundamental. He was no longer there just to learn or to fill a void. He was there because he wanted to be. Because Mariana and Bela had become an essential part of his life. Because for the first time he cared about someone other than himself. And that was terrifying and liberating at the same time. Mariana, for her part, also struggled with feelings she didn't expect to have. Bernardo wasn't perfect. He made mistakes, had much to learn about empathy and human connections. But he was sincere, he was dedicated, and more importantly, he saw her. He saw the strong, intelligent, capable woman, and not just the single mother struggling to survive. But both were afraid. Afraid to get too attached, to get hurt, that all of it was just a passing phase. And it was this fear that kept them in a careful dance, moving closer and pulling away, building something delicate that could break at any moment. But what they didn't know was that the real test was yet to come, and that the decisions they would have to make soon would define not only their future, but Bela's as well. Fate was about to force them to choose between security and vulnerability, between fear and courage, between living protected or living for real. The crisis came from where Bernardo least expected it. Not from Mariana, not from financial problems, but from his own past coming back to haunt him. It was an ordinary Tuesday when Bernardo received the call. An unknown number, a female voice he didn't recognize immediately. "Bernardo Tavares, it's Helena Andrade. I don't know if you remember me." Helena. The name hit Bernardo like a punch to the stomach. Of course he remembered. Helena had been his fiancée 8 years ago. They were about to get married when Bernardo discovered she was mainly interested in his money. A conversation overheard by chance. Comments she made to a friend about how good it would be to marry someone rich. Bernardo ended everything the next day, without explanation, simply cutting all ties. It was the final confirmation that trusting someone was a mistake. "What do you want, Helena?" "I need to talk to you, it's important. Can we meet?" "We have nothing to talk about. It's about your father." Bernardo felt the floor give way. "My father passed away 4 years ago. I know, it's exactly about that I need to talk. Please, Bernardo, just one conversation." Against his better judgment, Bernardo agreed. They met in a neutral cafe, far from the places he now frequented with Mariana and Bela. When Helena arrived, Bernardo noticed she had changed. Thinner, older, with a fragility that didn't exist before. "Thank you for coming." Helena sat down, her hands trembling slightly. "I know you probably don't want to see me, and I understand. But there are things you need to know." "Speak then." Helena took a deep breath. "After you broke up with me, I was destroyed. Not for the reasons you imagine. You thought I was interested in your money, right? That was why you left me without explanation." "It wasn't without reason. I heard you talking to your friend." "And you heard wrong," Helena interrupted, her voice firm. "Or rather, you heard only part of the conversation. Yes, I said it would be good to marry someone rich. But what you didn't hear was me saying right after that I didn't care if you lost everything, that I loved you for who you were, not for what you had, that I would stay with you even if you were broke." Bernardo felt something tighten in his chest. "That's not true." "It is, and your father knew it." Helena took a letter from her pocket and placed it on the table. "He sought me out a week after you broke up with me. He asked me to leave you in peace, said it was better that way. But he also gave me this. He said if anything happened to him, I should give it to you. But when he passed away, I didn't have the courage. Until now." Bernardo took the letter with trembling hands. It was his father's handwriting, unmistakable. He opened it and read, "Son, if you are reading this, it means I have departed, and it means Helena finally had the courage to give you this letter. Bernardo, I committed a terrible mistake. When you broke up with Helena, I thought it was the right decision. I thought you were protecting yourself, just as I tried to protect myself my whole life. But as I grew older, I realized we both made the same mistake. We built walls so high that we left outside the only people who truly cared about us. Your mother never forgave me for being so closed off, for never showing what I felt. And I died regretting not being different. Don't make the same mistake I did, son. If someone one day manages to cross your walls, don't push that person away. Because loneliness is the worst prison there is, and you deserve to be free." Bernardo finished reading with watery eyes. He felt as if the ground had disappeared from under his feet. Everything he believed about Helena, about himself, about the need to protect himself, was being questioned. "I loved you, Bernardo," Helena spoke softly. "Truly. And when you cut me out of your life without explanation, I almost gave up on everything. It took me years to recover. But eventually, I moved on. I married someone else. It didn't work out. We divorced. But at least I tried. Have you tried?" Bernardo shook his head, unable to speak. "I came here not to rekindle anything between us. That has passed. I came because your father asked me to give you this letter, and because recently I discovered, through mutual acquaintances, that maybe you are getting to know someone new. And I didn't want you to make the same mistake with me all over again. Don't push someone away who truly cares because you are afraid. How do you know I'm getting to know someone? São Paulo is smaller than it seems, and people like us who move in certain circles end up hearing things." Helena stood up. "I only ask one thing. Don't let fear decide your life. Your father realized it too late. You still have time." She left, leaving Bernardo alone with the letter and a whirlwind of emotions. Everything he had built, all his certainties, were crumbling. He had pushed Helena away unjustly. He had wasted years protecting himself from a threat that didn't even exist. And now he was doing the same thing with Mariana. Because as much as he tried to deny it, as much as he tried to maintain distance, the truth was clear. He was falling in love with Mariana, and it terrified him. That night, Bernardo didn't go to the square, nor the next day. He stayed locked in his apartment, rereading his father's letter, trying to process everything. Mariana sent messages asking if everything was okay, but he replied with vague excuses. Work, important meetings, unavoidable commitments. It was Bella who finally pulled him out of the paralysis. The girl called from her mother's cell phone, her voice worried. "Bernardo, you disappeared. Did we do something wrong?" Bernardo's heart tightened. "No, Bella, you didn't do anything." "Then why don't you come here anymore? My mother keeps looking at her phone and pretending she's not sad. But I know she is, and I am too. You promised you wouldn't hurt us." The accusation coming from a 7-year-old child, was more powerful than any argument he could have heard from an adult. He had promised, and he was breaking that promise out of fear. "I'm coming there." Bernardo stood up, sudden determination taking hold. "I'm coming right now." "Are you really? Seriously?" "I am. And Bela, thank you for calling." When Bernardo arrived at Mariana's house, it was already past 9 at night. Mariana answered the door with a closed expression, arms crossed. She had already put Bela to sleep. "Can I come in?" Mariana hesitated, then made space. They sat at the same table where so many conversations had already happened, but this time there was a different tension in the air. "You owe me an explanation," Mariana spoke first. "You disappeared. No warnings, no decent explanations. Exactly what I asked you not to do." "I know, I'm sorry." Bernardo ran his hands over his face. "Something happened that shook me, and I needed time to process." "What thing?" Bernardo told her everything. About Helena, about his father's letter, about the discoveries he made, about the fear that paralyzed him. Mariana listened in silence, her expression gradually softening. "So you ran away," Mariana summarized when he finished. "You got scared of what you're feeling and you ran away." "That's exactly it." "And what are you feeling?" Bernardo looked into her eyes, allowing himself to be vulnerable for the first time in a long time. "I'm afraid because I'm falling in love with you, and it terrifies me. Because the last time I allowed myself to feel something like this, I ruined everything. I pushed the person away, built more walls, locked myself in even tighter. And now I'm here with you, and I don't want to make the same mistake. But I also don't know how not to make it, because all of this is new to me. Truly feeling, truly caring, being willing to get hurt for someone. And it's not just you, there's Bela too. What if I ruin everything? What if I hurt you because I'm incapable of doing this right?" Mariana was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood up, went to him and did something unexpected. She took his face between her hands and forced him to look at her. "Bernardo, you want a guarantee. You want me to tell you that if you open up, if you try, nothing will go wrong. But I can't give you that. Because there are no guarantees. Relationships are risks. They always have been. I'm afraid too. Afraid you'll discover this was all just a phase, that you'll get tired of playing poor and go back to your world. Afraid Bela will get so attached to you that when you leave, she'll be destroyed. Afraid I'll get attached myself and end up suffering again. But do you know what the difference is between me and you? I've already decided it's worth the risk." "Why?" "Because living with fear isn't living." Mariana let go of his face and sat down again. "I could have stayed at my aunt's house forever, accepting crumbs, living in fear of trying something different. But I chose to fight. I chose to build my life, even without guarantees. And I'm choosing to give you a chance even knowing it could go wrong, because the alternative is being alone forever, protecting myself from a suffering that might not even happen. And if it happens, then we deal with it." Mariana shrugged. "But at least we tried, at least we truly lived." Bernardo felt something inside him break, not in a painful way, but a liberating one, as if invisible handcuffs had opened. "I want to try. I want to be with you and Bela. I want to be part of your life for real. And I promise I will fight against my fears, against my impulses to run away. It won't be easy, I know. I'll make mistakes, I'll stumble, but I'll try. That's all I ask." Mariana smiled, and it was a true smile full of hope. "That you try. And when you are afraid, instead of running away, you come talk to me. We face it together." Together. Bernardo repeated the word, feeling the weight and beauty of it. He had never done anything together with someone for real. Always alone, always controlling everything. But maybe it was time to learn a new way of living. Mariana moved closer, and this time she was the one to hold his hand. And they stayed like that, in silence, just connected. It wasn't a movie romance. It wasn't an overwhelming passion. It was something deeper, more real. It was two wounded, scared people deciding to take a risk anyway. And at that moment, sitting in that simple house with a strong woman holding his hand, Bernardo finally understood what his father had been trying to tell him in the letter. Freedom was not having control over everything. Freedom was having the courage to surrender, to trust, to love even without guarantees. And for the first time in his life, Bernardo chose to be free. 6 months had passed since that decisive night. and São Paulo, with all its greatness and contradictions, had witnessed a silent but profound transformation in the lives of three people. Bernardo was no longer the man who lived locked in empty routines and glass walls. His apartment was still the same, but now it had Bella's drawings stuck to the fridge, Mariana's books scattered on the sofa, and the smell of coffee made by hands that were not paid to be there, but chose to be. The company continued to demand his time and attention, but Bernardo had learned something fundamental. Success without purpose was not success. It was just accumulation. So he began to delegate more, to trust his team, to create space in his schedule for what truly mattered. Dinners with Mariana and Bella, helping with homework, walking through the square without haste, living, finally, for real. Mariana, with the business growing, had managed to achieve not only financial stability, but something she never imagined having: peace. The new stall became a small kiosk, with its own structure, and even an employee to help during peak hours. She still worked hard, but now with hope, with plans, with the feeling that she was building a solid future for Bela. And more than that, she had learned that accepting help was not weakness, that sharing life with someone did not mean losing her strength. Bernardo had surprised her by respecting every limit, every request, every time she said no, and precisely because he respected her no's, Mariana's yeses became increasingly frequent and genuine. Bela, always the wisest of the three despite her young age, just watched it all with satisfaction. She hadn't exactly gained a father, because no one tried to replace or erase what was missing, but she had gained a positive male presence, someone who listened to her, who valued her, who showed that men could also be caring and present. It was on a Sunday morning, 3 months after the decisive moment, that Bernardo made a decision that would change everything again. He woke up in his apartment, as always, but this time with an absolute certainty of what he needed to do. He called Mariana. "Can we talk today? It's important." Her voice came worried from the other side. "Did something happen?" "No, nothing bad. I just need to talk to you and Bella in person." When he arrived at their house, the two were already waiting. Mariana tense, Bella curious. Bernardo sat down and took a deep breath. "I've been thinking a lot. About us, about how everything changed, about what I want for the future. And I realized that this thing of living separately, of dividing time, doesn't make sense to me anymore." He looked at Mariana, then at Bela. "I want to be part of your family for real, not as a visitor, not as someone who passes through, but as someone who stays." Mariana blinked, processing. "What exactly are you saying?" "I'm saying I want to live with you." Bernardo hurried to continue before she could protest. I know. You're going to say this place is small, that there's no room for another person, and you're right. So I was thinking of a different solution. I sell my apartment, you sell this house, and we buy something together. Something that is ours, not mine, not yours. Ours. Bernardo. Mariana shook her head. You're talking about a house. You have an apartment worth millions. This house here is worth almost nothing. How would that be fair? It's not about financial fairness. It's about building something together. Bernardo took her hand. I put in the money from the sale of my apartment. You put in the money from this house. And we choose something that works for all of us. Something in a good neighborhood near a good school for Bella, but that also maintains what you have here: community, life, connection. And the house stays in the name of all three of us: mine, yours, and Bella's. But that doesn't make sense, Mariana argued. You're going to put in much more money. So what? Bernardo smiled. Money is just money. What matters is that we're going to build this together. Every decision, every choice, from the neighborhood to the color of the wall, together. Bella, who had been quiet until then, finally spoke. Are we going to be a real family? Bernardo looked at the girl, feeling his eyes burn. If your mother accepts, yes, we're going to be a real family. Mariana was silent for a long time. Bernardo saw tears forming in her eyes, and for a moment feared he had gone too far, that he had scared her. But then she spoke, her voice thick with emotion. Are you sure about this? Because after we take this step, there's no turning back. You're going to be entering our complete mess. There will be fights over homework. There will be clothes scattered. There will be sleepless nights when Bella gets sick. It's not going to be perfect. I don't want perfect. Bernardo wiped a tear that ran down her face. I want real, and real is messy, it's complicated, it's imperfect, but it's alive, and I spent too much time living in dead perfection. I want your mess. I want everything." "Mom, just say yes," Bella begged, "please." Mariana laughed through the tears. "All right, yes, let's do this, let's be a family." The hug that followed was the tightest Bernardo had ever received in his life. Bela jumped in the middle, Mariana held on tight, and for the first time since he could remember, Bernardo felt at home, not in a physical place, but in a connection, in a sense of belonging. The following months were a mixture of organized chaos and pure joy. Selling Bernardo's apartment was fast. It was a coveted property. Mariana's little house also sold without difficulty, and together the three spent weekends visiting neighborhoods, looking at houses, discussing possibilities. Bela had an opinion on everything, from the size of the backyard to the color of her room. Mariana worried about practicality, maintenance costs, and the distance to work. Bernardo learned to negotiate, to yield, to understand that family decisions were different from business decisions. They found the perfect house in a middle-class neighborhood, not too far from Heliopolis, but in a quieter area. It had 3 bedrooms, a small but charming backyard, and was near an excellent school. It wasn't a mansion, it wasn't extravagant luxury, but it was welcoming. It was a home. The move was made on a sunny Saturday, with help from Mariana's friends from the community, colleagues of Bernardo's whom he had finally invited to see his real life, and Bela supervising everything with the authority of someone who owned the situation. On the first night in the new house, after Bela was asleep and boxes were still scattered in every corner, Bernardo and Mariana sat in the backyard, looking at the stars. "Do you regret it?" Mariana asked softly. "What? Trading your luxury apartment for all this madness?" Bernardo pulled her close. "Never. I traded loneliness for family, silence for laughter, emptiness for love. It was the best trade of my life." "Really? Because there's still time to go back." Mariana joked, but Bernardo heard the insecurity behind the joke. "Mariana." He made her look at him. "I spent 42 years of my life without knowing what it was to truly love, without knowing what it was to be loved. You and Bella taught me. You showed me that wealth has nothing to do with money. It has to do with waking up and knowing that you matter to someone. It has to do with dining together, with talking about the day, with planning the future. I never had that. And now that I have it, I'm never going to let it go." "You are very intense, you know that." Mariana smiled, but there was love in that smile. "I learned from you." In the months that followed, life found its own rhythm. Bernardo continued working, but now he came home to a real home. Mariana expanded the business, opened a second unit, and Bernardo helped her with the administrative part in the evenings, the two of them working side by side at the kitchen table while Bela did her homework. There were challenges, of course, fights about how to raise Bella, about finances, about limits and responsibilities, but now they faced everything together, talking, negotiating, learning to be real partners. It was on a Saturday, almost a year after the first meeting in that square, that Bernardo realized how much he had changed. He was in the backyard, helping Bela plant flowers, dirty with soil, laughing at something silly she had said. Mariana watched them from the kitchen window, a smile on her face, and Bernardo realized that was happiness. Not the artificial happiness of winning a business deal or buying something expensive, but real, deep happiness of being exactly where he should be, with the people he should be with. That night after dinner, when the three were on the sofa watching some movie, Bela laid her head on Bernardo's lap and murmured, already almost asleep, "I love you, Bernardo." It was the first time she had said that, and Bernardo felt something inside him break and remake itself at the same time. "I love you too, Bella, very much." Mariana on the other side of the sofa smiled and took his hand. "And I love you both." And there, in that simple and perfect moment, Bernardo finally understood what he had been looking for his whole life. It wasn't success, it wasn't wealth, it wasn't recognition. It was this. It was love. It was family. It was belonging. A spontaneous child who sold candies in a square, a strong mother who refused to be less than she was, and a lonely man who had the courage to tear down his own walls. 3 completely different lives that met at the right time, in the right place, and decided to build something new together. And in that simple home full of love, in some neighborhood in São Paulo, a new story was being written. Not a fairy tale story, but a real story of struggle, of growth, of transformation. A story about discovering that sometimes, to find what you truly need, you have to be willing to lose everything you thought you wanted. And that in the end, what truly matters is not what you have, it's who you choose to share your life with. Dear listeners, we hope the story of Bernardo, Mariana, and Bela has touched your heart. If you were moved by this journey of transformation and true love, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments which moment marked you the most. Every day we bring in